We will start this video with discussing the best movie of the most contentious trilogy,
Right.
the Disney sequels. Ooh. So, in your opinion, Tani, out of these three very contentious, very divisive opinion based movies, which one is the best movie for you and why?
Okay. So, so again, this this era of Star Wars is actually not my favorite era of Star Wars, but if that is the question we are asking, which is the best movie of the sequel trilogy, then hands down, as a cinematic experience, I would take Last Jedi any day. Because Last Jedi has delivered so many promises on a good storytelling, a subsequent, uh, turnover of a character which we always thought is going in one specific direction. So
Yeah,
director
yeah.
has taken things so intricately in that movie, and it is such a director movie, Ryan's
Yes,
movie, that
indeed.
it shows what kind of imagery that guy can create, both storytelling wise and screen wise, what we are seeing on the screen, what kind of trajectory the characters are going to take in future.
Yes,
So according
absolutely.
to that movie is
Absolutely.
a cinematic experience, brilliant movie, right? But since we are doing a Star Wars sequel, and as a Star Wars movie, I am really sad to say that the movie doesn't live up to the promise that the sixth movie has put up, and the trajectory of the whole sequel trilogy was haywire. So, to salvage something out of it, I would say Force Awakens is the most Star Wars of all Star Wars sequels, right? So for me, Force Awakens would take the crown. Though it is almost a clear-cut ripoff of the First Hope, A New Hope, but still, I'll take the Force Awakens. So I gave my point. Now the question is on you, Tejas. So which movie do you think has delivered on the Star Wars promise in the sequel era?
So since you have mentioned the sequels era and not just the sequels, so I'll consider the whole Disney spectrum of Star Wars and the Star Wars movies in the Disney spectrum to be a part of this question. And that gives me the opportunity to sneakily consider the best, one of the best Star Wars movies ever made. And yes, folks, that was by Disney, by the way, the same one we like to hate for the rise of who must not be named,
Uh,
right?
Somehow
So,
he
and that
survived,
movie is Rogue One.
right?
And that movie is Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
Rogue One, Rogue One embodied what Star Wars is about: the rebellion, the revolution, the sacrifices, and the expansive imagery that could give movies like Interstellar and Dune competition and stay in that competition. It was that good visually. But yeah,
Absolutely.
my sneakiness aside, and my honorable mention of a non-trilogy movie aside, I think the best Star Wars movie, I would disagree with you a bit in that only The Force Awakens was embodying what Star Wars is all about in the trilogy, because I actually felt that The Last Jedi was actually a proper great Star Wars movie.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
this is a galaxy we are talking about.
Right.
This, I know Star Wars likes to consider its planets and exoplanets and the moons like just cities, like the way we would consider
True. True.
cities
True.
in
The whole planet is one thing. Right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
so it considers everything as cities, but it is a galaxy. It has got variety. People are complicated. Things can change. Narratives can vary with time. And that is why Luke Skywalker might one day feel like Kylo Ren is going too dark and I should kill him. And that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly where my issue lies with the movie. And I would say, uh, with all due respect to Ryan, that this take is, for me, a very bold take. It's a very bold
Yeah,
take. I will give
yeah,
it to
exactly.
him that this is one of the boldest takes Star Wars has ever done. I totally agree with this. The problem I have with this is the line of history which the character was on, and the line of history which we never saw him fall into. This movie should have had a very good prequel, very good first movie. Then this movie could live up to the promise that it was delivering on. What I am really confused about is this: the sequel era is a hodgepodge of many tones.
Oh,
If there
that is true.
Yeah, if there was one narrative going, and Last Jedi was the culmination or the empire of this sequel, of the sequel era. I totally see it as an empire of the sequel era. It is that kind, that,
It is a fallen empire, though, but
yeah,
still.
it totally is. But the problem is the first movie, The Force Awakens, was so cookie cut, so safe playing in Star Wars, that it was like, okay, let's make the New Hope but with new people. It's just like so safe. So the problem
Yeah,
here
and
lies that Ryan should have done the trilogy, or which I mean, which we all are thinking, when will the Ryan trilogy come, or will it ever come or not, or
yeah,
the state
I
of the
think, I
studio
think,
is so divided that we might not
I
even
think,
get
I
it
think,
right.
I think he deserves it though, because honestly speaking,
Right.
the narrative and the boldness of this movie, The Last Jedi, was brilliant.
Yeah,
And
totally.
honestly, it was one of the best Star Wars watches of my life. And I am a guy who defends Ant-Man Quantumania to his death. Who's gonna defend Ant-Man
Oh,
Quantumania to his
that
death?
is for
So I
another
have,
day. We have to
yeah.
discuss
So
that as well.
no, that is to establish
Right,
the
right,
fact that I have sometimes got very peculiar takes,
right.
but people probably will have to agree with me in that The Last Jedi was probably the one movie in this trilogy that dared, and
Oh yeah,
that
totally, totally.
and I and it delivered on the daring as well. It
Mm,
was not
mm,
like
mm.
it broke apart like the Rise of Skywalker.
So I will totally
Yeah,
agree with you on this point, that what this movie said it will do, it delivered on that. Now, if you
yeah.
like that kind of story, kudos to you, happy for you. If you're very, mixed about the story itself, yeah, that is where it becomes complicated for people like us who wanted to see
So
Luke Skywalker soaring in this sky, like, he being,
so
the chosen,
I am
the
I am a
chosen one
sucker.
of the sequel era.
I am a sucker. I am a sucker for grounded and like falling heroes, and who rise up again
Right.
from their falling mindset. And we have to remember that Luke Skywalker had darkness in him. Luke Skywalker had a
Right.
dark past, not a dark past, but a
Right.
pained past. And
Right.
pain is something the dark side festers on. And it is not that surprising that the brightest of the lights will dim the most when even a speck of darkness arrives. And
Mm.
that moment of weakness
Right.
was just like a lunar eclipse that
Mm.
happens once in many, many moons.
Ha.
And it just it was a error of judgment on his part, but then again it was based in something that turned out to be true in the end.
Mm. I mean, to be true is a story which they somehow made, right? So again,
No,
because it's
Kylo
a
Ren
very
was already dark.
right,
Kylo Ren was already dark in the first movie of
right,
this trilogy. It's
right.
not like
So
after that scene Kylo Ren was shown and he was dark. He
absolutely,
was
no, no,
already
no. He,
established as a Sith.
I agree. I agree. He was the Sith of the new era, right? Totally, I agree with that. The problem I have again is when Yoda was talking to Luke in Dagobah, and where Luke is like craving to save his friends, and like, why are you wasting time, and why are you teaching me all this which I'm not gonna use, and they are in trouble, and I can sense it. And Yoda senses that there is this anguish in Luke that wants to do something or finish something rather than be peaceful, be composed about it, be thoughtful,
Yeah.
be aware of the scenario. And there he sees himself within the clone trooper armor or something. I'm not very sure, or Darth Vader helmet itself, that there is a broken mask and Luke is inside that and he feels afraid of it. But the point is, even in that dark situation where he could have switched and he could have had the Darth in him, overpower him, he went and tried to fight for his friends, and he was
So,
not being
yeah.
manipulated. He was totally manipulated by Palpatine, but he didn't switch. He didn't fight
So
Palpatine's game.
I have a take here. I
Right,
have a take here
right,
that I would quote Thanos and Iron Man, and I
right.
would say knowledge is a curse. And
Mm,
the Luke had youth on his side, had the positivity of youth on his side in the whole uh, 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 first OG trilogy.
right.
And what happened in the sequence between episode 6 and episode 8 or episode 7,
Seven.
in the timeline it is
Right, right,
before
right,
episode 7
right,
actually. So what happened in that era is that he saw Order 66, he saw the Jedi fall. Means he did not see it, he knew about it. Knew about Order 66, he knew about the fall of the Jedi, he knew from his own rebellion that most of the Jedi were dead
mm,
or just scattered around in the galaxy.
right,
He was trying to rebuild a legacy. He
right,
had the weight of a legacy on his head,
right.
and that kind of weight is not something a person who has been a soldier for
Mm,
most of his life, like
right,
Luke Skywalker,
right,
could take. He had never been a teacher before.
right,
He was not a Jedi master before this. He did not have the luxury to be a Yoda or the luxury to be a Mace Windu or the luxury to be any of the Jedi Council of the days gone by, right?
right.
He had to rebuild something he had very limited experience of because he was taught by a half senile Yoda in a bog,
Mm. But he
right?
had the whole power of the universe where every Jedi, every ghost of a Jedi was with him.
And
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 they
and
could
we
have
know
built the
how
proper Jedi
and
order.
and and we know how good every Jedi is. The Jedi's do not have any conflicting thoughts at all.
No, I
The
agree. I
Jedi's
totally agree. I
the
totally agree that the
Jedi's have
Jedi order
always
was
been the paragon
already
of
flawed.
truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That I
and he
agree.
had the voices and he had the voices of every flaw in his head. As you mentioned, he had the whole Jedi Order
I
inside him
totally agree.
in a way.
Arc 2,
So,
based in Arc 2, the bookshelf which he had, the books which he was reading, the Rakuten Invader storyline, and the whole, like, High Republic era or even Old Republic era, the books which survived all that period and which he was learning from. And he was communicating with Yoda, and Yoda we consider the most, like, the encyclopedia of being a Jedi, where he has made some two, three wrong decisions, but not really many. He's
so
one of the
to
best.
quote Dumbledore, uh, I am usually right. So when I am wrong, my mistakes are huge,
Right. Totally,
and that
totally.
applied to
I
Yoda.
totally agree with that. So,
And and uh,
so,
and I would
hmm,
also say
right.
I would also say that that decision, the contentious decision of that movie, in my opinion, grounded the character and made it more real.
You
Like
mean
he
to say
was,
Luke's character, right? No, no,
yes.
I agree. See, I have nothing against that. The movie is a very good movie. The problem which I have with the movie is only in studying what kind of character Luke really was, and the story which they were taking with Luke. It had to be imposed in the first one. It has to be emphasized enough in the first one or shown enough in the first one that the greatest of all people fell because the reason was this big. Now, my problem with this is Luke has seen the best in the worst kind of people and saved them. The example being the third movie where he saved all he the sixth movie where he saved Darth Vader, and Vader kills Palpatine to save his son and finally realizes you were right, my son. And so that kind of goodness is around Luke, and he has a green lightsaber, to be very, to be exact. So the universe is also with him. So kind of, so what I'm wondering is the thinking process of Kathleen Kennedy and people there was kind of questionable. Not that the movie is bad, movie is really good, but it didn't. There was nothing build up to
Uh,
that extent.
I would say one thing that the prequel trilogy, the second trilogy that got a lot of hate on its
Right,
face
right,
value,
right.
redeemed itself not because of time and nostalgia, not just that,
Not just
but it
that.
also redeemed itself because of the shows, animated shows like the
Oh,
Clone
totally,
Wars,
totally, totally.
which happened way after the movie.
Yeah.
So, what this movie needs to be one of the best in Star Wars era is an animated show that happens. So
Okay,
that's my take.
so yeah, and this is the best take of today's May the 4th, that we need more animated shows from Star Wars, and this is so true, because you know what, the sequel, the era of sequel trilogy, whatever animated shows have come, they have blasted off, like they are so good.
So, yeah.
Right.
So, we have taken a very long discussion about the trilogy we were probably gonna discuss the least about. So, on the note of the Clone Wars and
Okay.
the animated series,
Right, right, right.
let's let's go to the episode 1, 2, 3, the 1990s.
Okay,
Again,
OG.
contentious for its time, probably even more contentious for its time than the Disney trilogy, to be frank. And
Hmm.
let's talk about our favorite movies from this era, and
Sure.
maybe a little briefly this time
Sure.
because these
So
are
would you
straightforward.
like to take this one before me, or should I
No,
go?
I would like you to start. I would like you
Okay.
to start because you are the one who flows away with the narrative.
Oh, right, right, right. Okay,
Just
cool.
kidding.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for giving me the chance. So for me, again, this one is a box of stories. This prequel trilogy is a box of stories. There is there
Yes.
is nuance in the Duel of Fate music, the whole sequence
Oh,
of
damn.
Duel of Fate, right? There is so much of nuance. What if Qui-Gon Jinn survived and didn't die, and what would have happened to Anakin Skywalker if Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't teach him, and if Qui-Gon Jinn taught him? What if he was able to sway the minds of the Jedi Order? Many this is a
Indeed.
juggernaut of a story. This is a magical time.
And this is without mentioning the political
Oh,
overtones.
absolutely nothing. And you know what? The biggest villain of probably the previous century, Papa Palpatine. I will never stop calling him Papa Palpatine. I hate him so much. I hate him.
More
And
like Palpatine.
Papa Palpatine, I hate him so much that even before I knew that he was going to be Palpatine, he was already the biggest villain in my mind. So that is
Yeah.
achievement on cinematic, not just a story level. It is in cinema level achievement. It is that big
Yes.
an achievement. So okay,
Yeah.
so coming back
And
to,
and the movies don't get enough credit for it.
they never do. Prequels have plotted the biggest villain of the century, and people don't realize he is the biggest villain. Period. Okay, Darth Vader is nothing. He's just a child who is not
Darth
realized what he
Darth
wants
Vader
with
is a
his life.
poor conflicted soul. Darth Vader
Right.
is just a poor
Is very
conflicted soul
poor
who went
conflicted
dark.
soul. Right, right. That is why. Good that you swayed me to that direction. That is why my favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah,
of this era.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
not just because the story culminated and it was the end game of the Star Wars prequels, it is also completely devastating, emotionally devastating, when you see that the person you loved, you adored, you imagined that this person is going to take us to the hopeful green land, and there he switches because there Palpatine wins, and there you cannot we cried every single time I saw that part. I was
Absolutely.
so sad
Absolutely.
for Anakin. I was
Yeah.
extremely devastated for Anakin. So that takes the
Agreed.
crown jewel. It is the crown jewel of the prequel for
It
me
is the crown jewel.
personally. But
Yeah.
to be fair to Attack of the Clones, it's so important to emphasize what Tejas did, and I will use his point a little bit, that this movie has the best political narrative of any movie sci-fi period ever.
Not just sci-fi. I would say it is one of the best political commentaries, period.
Period. Right,
It
right,
in the history of cinema,
right,
and I would narrow it down a little bit, and I would say in the history of mainstream cinema.
right,
It
right,
is one of the best political narratives it is what Civil War should aspire to be.
Yeah, totally, totally, totally. Right. Because the very moment you realize that on the water planet where the Kiminuans are making these clones and the clones are working with the Jedi, and you feel like, dude, where is that twist coming? Like, where is that switch coming? And you don't even realize that it has already been plotted by the Communals everywhere on
Exactly.
the galaxy. The whole galaxy is,
Exactly.
and you are equally shocked as the people who switch and start killing the Jedi. And the separatist and the
Oh
libertarians
my God.
and the whatever you name it, French Revolution people or the Russian Revolution, whatever, bourgeois or proletarians, whatever.
Everything. Everything.
Right.
Everything.
Oh my God. And the way Palpatine uses Dooku as a counterpoint to run his narrative and make Dooku the villain, but eventually he is the villain and Dooku is that soul who was caught in between the whole
Classic
mumbo
flip and
jumbo.
switch. Classic flip and switch. Classic
Oh,
flip and
totally.
switch.
This movie is full of
And
plot twists. This is like yeah, it's magical.
the whole, I think the whole movie is a plot twist.
Right.
And I think anything in Star Wars that even can compete in tone and narrative with this movie is Andor. That's the only
Yes.
thing that can even compare.
Yes, yes, you are absolutely right on the money, Teju. That because interestingly, what Attack of the Clones also did, which Andor currently is not doing, Andor is a story of the people of Star Wars.
Yes,
Attack of the Clones is a story of the people who are the limelight in Star Wars. It's also the story
exactly.
of the people of Star Wars, but we don't see what
Yeah.
is happening.
And
Yeah,
there is a reason why I mentioned this story, because both these stories are happening at the same time.
right, right.
Both these stories are kind of happening at the same time in the same era.
Not really, Tejas. It's
2 decades, 2 decades. But
it's
I'm talking about the political undercurrents of Palpatine are still existing in that world when Andor is happening
hmm,
in the Senate.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm telling in the context of the
Right,
cause is happening in the movie, and the
right,
effect of it, a lot of the effect of it we are seeing in Andor,
right, 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 right. Totally, right,
right?
right, 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 right.
So I think it is the most direct sequel to
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
movie.
yeah. It is the spiritual successor of the whole Attack of the Clones storyline. Yeah, the spiritual successor,
Yeah.
no doubt. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I was not talking absolutely chronologically,
Right,
but
right, right.
spiritually.
Right, right, right. I didn't
So,
get that part. I was like, oh,
yeah.
I mean, like, I was confused, like, what? Because, see, the problem with the Star Wars now, and with my brain, is Star Wars is so many storylines and so many timelines. You just can't remember the whole thing. It's
It's
just
it's a whole it's a whole freaking galaxy, and now there are two
galaxy.
galaxies.
Yeah, now they're good point. I really like the other galaxy as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a fun little
super cool.
galaxy.
Okay,
Lots of magic.
so the last point I will put in is the Phantom of Menace, the Phantom Menace. Right. The
So
last point I'll
Phantom
put
of
in
the
is
Opera.
the Phantom of the Opera. I was saying no, no, no. The last point I'll put in is Phantom Menace. Uh, so this movie is not a bad movie, which people say it is. It is not a bad movie. What it is in comparison to the other two movies, it doesn't live up to that kind of complicacy which the other movies have. But
Oh,
this movie has something going for it brilliantly. The whole plot of Anakin and the whole plot of the Duel of the Fate that decides the future of a Star Wars period Skywalker period. Everything goes from there bang on towards that direction, towards a specific direction. This movie is a very important movie. This movie
yeah.
is such an important movie in the whole in the Star Wars anthology, that without this movie, without Qui-Gon's thing, without there being a Qui-Gon, you will never realize what Jedi Order did wrong, where the
So
Jedi fell.
without a Qui-Gon, the Jedi era would be bygone.
Bygone. Totally. It was a bygone. That guy was gone
Yeah.
and Jedi Order bygone. Totally, you're right. So, yeah. So, but still, in
Bye
my
bye
mind,
bye.
I would say three, then two, then one.
Yeah. Now it's my turn now.
Yeah, sure,
Uh,
totally.
I agree. I agree with all your takes, and I have given a few of my takes as well. But I will talk a little bit about the first movie of this trilogy,
Right.
which is The Phantom Menace. I have a small personal anecdote to share here.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace was actually the first Star Wars movie that I saw as a child because because we were living in a slightly remote area and
Right.
there was not much television in the sense of cable TV and all back in the 90s and early 2000s. And my father got a burnt CD of pirated burnt CD of this movie from the local market, which was like worth 10 rupees of that era,
Right.
around $0.1. And that is the movie that I first saw. And let me tell you this, for a guy who was like 12, 13 years old and watching his first Star Wars movie, this movie brilliantly set up not just that trilogy, but the whole Star Wars
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah.
I can say that because I it was literally my first movie, and that movie was, I think that movie was not meant to be setting up just this trilogy. That movie was meant to be setting up Star Wars for the new generation,
Right.
who will not go and directly watch episode 4
Right.
chronologically like we do,
Right.
because that movie is really really old and people
Right.
don't want to really watch the old movie with the old graphics.
Right.
So this movie was fantastic. Anakin Skywalker as a child was captivating to me as a kid. The
Yeah.
pod racing was engrossing. The moral dilemmas of that movie were a little heavy for the early age, but they were not so preachy that they would not get in the head of a pre-teenager or a teenager. They were spot on in its writing to introduce Star Wars to a new generation, and I don't think that movie gets enough credit for it.
Absolutely. I agree with you on this.
And that is why, honestly, whatever the Phantom Menace did or whatever the Revenge of the Sith did to the whole Star Wars universe, I would have to give the credit to this movie, because this movie, I misspelled right now, right? So whatever, not Phantom Menace, whatever the Attack of the Clones and the Revenge of the Sith did to this trilogy, I have to give the credit to Phantom Menace, because that movie built Star Wars again for a new generation.
Totally.
And it is that foundation that the rest two movies of this trilogy could
Build
like
upon.
build their
Totally.
empire on.
Yes. 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 Yes, I
So
agree with you on this. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
so this was my take,
Oh.
and I agree with your ranking. The ranking is still 3-1 when it comes to the cinema quality,
Right.
but emotionally it is 1-3-2
Okay. Okay. Magical.
for me.
Magical.
Emotionally,
Totally. Totally.
yeah,
Movies are subjective. Your experience makes the movies the magical things they are. So I
yeah,
agree with you on this thesis. Yeah.
and because still the movie that I enjoy rewatching the most is Phantom Menace.
You have
Honestly,
the childhood
it is
memories connected to it as well.
not just that. That movie has the innocence that the rest of the Star Wars lacks. That movie is the story of innocence being ripped off, squeezed, put in sand because he hates sand. I had to do this, and yeah, and just there is darkness, darkness, darkness before, and there is darkness, darkness, darkness after.
Right.
Even though the first movie of the sequels trilogy also does a good job at rising the hope in the Force Awakens,
Right.
but this movie has the purity and innocence that only a kid Anakin Skywalker could bring. And that
Yeah.
movie is also the exact reason why I do not like the arc of Padme and Anakin becoming lovers.
Mm. Mm.
That is my bone to pick with this trilogy, that
Right.
that arc
Right.
was probably not
Right.
necessary,
Yeah.
could have been done with some other senior member of the Senate who was closer to Anakin's age. It's not just ageism, but it is also about, we have seen the dynamics of Padme and Anakin in the first movie, and the shift towards romance And that also shows you that George Lucas does not know how to do romance.
It's difficult for him.
It's difficult for
He
him.
himself has claimed that he is a person who studied a lot of theology and his study of society and demography. So he's more interested in those philosophical debates and discussions rather
Yeah.
than that interpersonal relationship. That is where
And that is
sometimes
why
issues happen.
that relationship was so extremely flawed. Granted, the payoff was amazing.
Yeah,
Payoff
yeah,
was amazing.
yeah.
But honestly, replace that character with any other character and you will get the same
You
payoff.
will get the same thing, right? Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
It
this was a
so
brilliant take, Teju, and we went a little emotional, a little philosophical, a
has to
little
be it's Star Wars.
so
It's
many.
Star Wars.
It's a Star Wars. It is a galaxy where we are living. So
If
every
we are
emotion,
not gonna be emotional about Star Wars, what can we be emotional about?
yeah, man, this is our generation. uh,
And probably the most
Odyssey,
contentious
right,
emotional
right,
fandom of all time. And
right.
probably the most emotional and contentious fandom of all time. Like,
It's
like
difficult. Yes,
no,
we love the things which we love, and we are very vocal about things we don't. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it is
And coming from a guy who finds it hard to dislike movies in general, because we know how hard it is to make
to make
movies.
one, right?
Yeah. Even the shittiest movies are hard to make.
Yeah,
Dude, these actors are still remembering the lines and
I'm
acting
totally
them.
stupid in filmmaking. I cannot make any of this, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so all that said apart, but again, since movies are subjective in nature, and since we have our relationship with those movies, so we can, of course, we are talking about the relationship with those movies right now. So
Yeah.
let's go to the next one. This is the big one. This is where it all
This is
started.
this is where it all started.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this is where it
This
all
is this
started.
is this is the end of the beginning and beginning of the end. This is the OG trilogy. This
Oh,
is
I saw
1977.
what you did there. Ouroboros,
Yeah.
Ouroboros,
Yeah. Ouroboros indeed.
Ouroboros indeed.
And this is 1977, right? It's a people are used to a certain type of science fiction, and people are used to a certain type of fiction. And sorry, I'm gonna go in a small rant before I pose a question. Yeah, gearing up for it. So it's 1977. People don't know that science fiction, fiction, and movie making is gonna change forever, right?
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
a storm is coming and no one knows what that storm is,
Yeah,
and that storm is a long time ago in a galaxy far far away. I mean, the start of that movie, the start of this iconic contentious divisive fan base starts with a panned tilted text in yellow just flying around, a lot of information, no context given about it. Why it is called episode 4? Why are we starting with the episode 4? And then there is a star filled galaxy. The camera pans down, and we are in a legendary planet, right? Which planet is it, Tani?
Tatooine.
Tatooine,
The
the
sand.
planet with the
The
two
guy hated
stars.
sand.
Yeah. So it all started in Tatooine. Many would call it a ripoff of Dune, but it is not ripoff when it's inspiration and it is clearly mentioned. And we are just, I remember a conversation I was having with a friend during the lockdown in COVID era in 2020. Shout out Maitre, shout out Tarek. That this was a world we were just dropped into without much context, with just a paragraph to give us a little bit of backstory about what is happening
What is going on
in
in
this
that
weird
specific
little
scene?
galaxy.
Almost like that
Yeah,
specific
yeah,
scene, right?
yeah. And then we are just dropped off in the middle of a desert in a market full of weird masked humanoid creatures, aliens, uh, and the story just begins.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just things are happening.
yeah.
There is Han Solo, there is Luke Skywalker, there is Ben Kenobi, there are Javas, there are the Sand People, and there is a band playing in a cantina. I mean, iconic things are happening,
There
but
is
no
this
one
there
knows
is
they are
this
iconic
sound
yet.
coming. There is this sound coming in the background.
Can't hear you.
This sound coming.
I don't think your I don't think your mic is capturing this sound. But
The
yeah,
so whatever it is, if people you can listen, this is the sound of the Darth Vader, and when he comes in, like peepaw, peepaw. Oh my God! And the chills in the
so this
air.
is the
Oh
sound
my,
he's talking about.
right.
But that is a fancy microphone, so it's not capturing those breathy sounds. Mine is a simpler one, so it is capturing those sounds. So sometimes simple is efficient,
Right.
and that is what this movie was: simple
And
and
efficient.
efficient and brilliant at what. See, you see what I did there.
You did
Nothing on this
smart, bro.
podcast is
You
being
did
told
smart.
without a point,
Yeah, yeah,
folks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Totally,
nothing
totally.
in this podcast is saying without a logic, folks. Whether it is twisted logic or a straightforward
Whatever.
logic, or is it just
Or
Pikachu logic?
both.
I don't know. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
So this movie, it just drops you in a world. You don't know shit. And by the time 1 hour happens, 1 hour of this movie has passed, you are on the edge of your bloody seats and you're like, what the hell? I don't even knew these people, but I care for them now. And that movie builds it up so well. And that is the genius of not just storytelling and filmmaking, but the combined effort of everyone involved on the set to create this beautiful medley of cinematographic sequences together that just somehow works. It keeps you engrossed. I'm telling you, if a child who is 12, 13 years old watches this movie in 2025, if they can get over the graphics, they will be engrossed and involved by the end of the first 30 minutes.
right.
That's how good and timeless this storytelling device is.
Yes, totally.
And for this reason, for me, no movie in this series
Yeah,
other than the first movie of the prequel trilogy can even compare to this movie.
right.
And yeah, I'm being contentious when I say that Phantom Menace is the only movie comparable to this, because those were the two immensely challenging world building and setting up movies. And trust me, as someone who is an avid reader of novels, the introduction is the hardest part to crack,
True.
because why would people turn the pages? Why would
Yeah,
people be invested
totally.
if the first few pages are not amazing?
Right.
And that is why I would die on the hill and say that Phantom Menace
You don't
and
have to.
this movie are they
There are hundreds and thousands of people out
yeah,
outside, and the folks who
yeah,
are watching right now, they understand what you mean. I do
yeah,
understand what you mean. So yeah,
yeah.
totally,
And
totally.
are they the best movies of this iconic 11 movie multiple series extravaganza? No, but they are the most important and critical ones,
Right, right, right,
right?
right. So yeah,
And they
so
nail it on
so
the head.
so if I'm
So
not.
getting the passing the mic to
Oh
you,
no,
Tani, and now
totally,
you have
totally.
to tell
So
your
I no,
favorites.
I was taking it from you only that since it is such a tremendous achievement in cinema and such an achievement in filmmaking, and what it showed the masses around the globe that this can be done. What you just saw can be done. ILM came to the front lights of the whole cinematography and picturization and miniature building and computer based graphics interfacing. So many things came because of this specific
Yes,
movie.
yes,
It changed the industry, it changed
yeah.
Hollywood itself. This is that big a movie, right?
It
So
changed cinema forever.
cinema forever. It got changed forever. Absolutely. So if that is the point I'm making, then of course nothing beats a Star Wars, the first Star Wars ever. But then, but then I do a twist here because because for me, specifically for me, the first movie is a love letter, but the second
Yeah.
movie tells you what is the nuance in this whole story.
Yes.
The what is the
Yes. Absolutely.
what is the intricacy you've been looking forward to, and what George Lucas in his heart and soul wants to say to you. That is the second movie for me. So
Yeah.
technically
Absolutely.
I respect,
Technically,
I
yes.
bow down to Star Wars, the first Star Wars, but Empire is where things start.
Uh, I mean, it literally strikes back.
Right.
So that yeah, Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back.
I agree with you.
Right.
It's probably the most technically brilliant science fiction movie ever made.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, if we don't consider movies like Arrival, who tackle much bigger psychological
Right.
theories,
Right.
but but
Because of
what
this,
fantasy is all
Arrival could
about?
be made. What I'm
Yeah,
saying is,
absolutely.
what I'm saying
Yes,
is ki, because this movie existed, the cinema knew, the Hollywood knew there could be movies with this kind of philosophy and this kind of insight to storytelling. You are absolutely right,
absolutely.
Tejas. Those great movies could be made after this. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Empire Strikes Back is a movie that is, if the first movie was a perfect chapter to start, this was the movie that built the whole novel.
Right. Right.
And there is a reason that people like us call the first trilogy the perfect science fiction trilogy.
Mm.
Because, as the title itself says, they are not movies, they are chapters. And they are built in a such succinct, beautiful pacing and storytelling narrative that you can't help but fall in love with it. Right?
Totally.
So,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, like Lord of the Rings is there. But even the movie Lord of the Rings could happen the way it did because this trilogy existed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The movie, the
Yeah.
movie.
Totally. I agree
Because
with you on this. Yeah. Yeah.
so this movie is basically what started it all. Look what Lucasfilm did after this movie. They made Indiana Jones, and it was, I can't tell how big it was because it was, Indy
Right.
was
Right.
crazy.
Right.
Even though he's a glorified like American Museum, Smithsonian Museum filler,
Right.
and just a stealer of relics from all over the world because everything belongs in the museum and not with the natives. But yeah, it was a fantastic, fantastic movie. And Star Wars did it all.
Right. Totally.
There were books that were doing things. This was the first time cinema did it.
Right. Right.
And poof, just like that, we have Avengers, we have Justice League, we have Marvel, we have DC, we have Lord of the Rings, we have even the movie Dune, we have Christopher Nolan creating all these wonderful things in cinema.
Right.
And nothing of that sort would have happened without the technological advances that happened because of this movie and
Totally.
this trilogy. And
Totally.
that is why it is very, like, I know you have a rank, but it is gonna be extremely hard for me to rank these three movies. They are a
Right.
collective and they are numero uno, not just in Star Wars, but across the fandom.
Right. Right.
They are the numero uno cinematic masterpiece that this world got when it comes to fiction, fantasy, and making movies which have sequels.
Totally.
A
Totally.
sequence of movies.
Totally. It's
And
very
that is my
difficult. Yeah,
ranking.
it's always the way we see OG trilogy is not as a trilogy. We say trilogy, but we see it as one big chapter. And that's
Yeah.
how it is. So it's kind of the YouTube cop out which we are doing right now, but kind of it is not
Yeah.
a cop
But
out
we
because
will
they,
rank it. But
yeah,
we will rank it.
right. So for Tejas, it is very clear that it is the first Star Wars, and for me, it is very clear that. Is the novel which kind of tries to take the crown from the main chapter, from the original chapter. So yeah, so for me it is Empire Strikes Back, and for Tejas it is the Star Wars first movie.
And we
So
can
yeah.
all agree that episode 6 is the weakest of the trilogy. And
Yeah, kind of. Yes,
and
yes.
and that says a lot about the greatness of a trilogy when the weakest movie is also so strong.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right?
So
Right.
folks, this is it. This is the series of the best movies in each trilogy. And this is
And a
very
little bit about the
contentious.
spin-offs.
Right, it is very contentious. You might be angry at us, but don't be so angry because you can love what you
Or be
really
angry
do.
in the comments. Debate in the comments.
Please do tell your
We will
opinions about.
reply.
Absolutely, we will respect you for your ideas, for your things, and we will
As
respond back.
as long as you are not abusive. If you are abusive, we will force choke you.
Ooh, there was some Darth Jar Jar there.
Misa thinks that these are people are not good.
So,
We went through a whole video
oh,
without doing the Misa thing. How
oh,
great is that?
and so
And
that tells
honestly,
how in depth this discussion was on the U2.
but honestly, since we are on the topic of Jar Jar, I don't get the hate. I loved him as a kid.
Oh dear.
The point is,
Children love
the,
Jar Jar.
there
People can make fun of
no,
him,
there is
but
another
when we
reason
were
behind it.
children,
There,
right?
there is another reason behind it. The first time I saw this movie was not in English; it was in Hindi.
Oh.
And Jar Jar in Hindi was way more palatable in his style of talking. It was just a dubbing. It was a normal dubbing. It was not Misa Yusa. What's up? What's up? So yeah, the
So
first time
yeah,
I saw it in English, I was like, "This is what Jar Jar sounds like." That is crazy. It is hilarious,
yeah,
but it
it's
is
good. It's
crazy.
good. It's pretty sick, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, this is
and
great.
and people who don't like Jar Jar and they have by any chance got a Jar Jar action figure, will give you my address. Send it to me. I love Jar Jar. You don't. I would love an action figure. We don't get it in India.
So yeah, this is great. This is great
Yeah,
having you folks here. This is great Tejas being here, and this is great
this is
talking
great.
about
Tani
Star
being
Wars and
here.
May the Fourth.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So we
So
sign
may the
off
fourth be
now.
with you.
Right. We
May
sign
the
off
fourth be
now.
with you. May the
May the
force be
Force
with
be
you.
with
Pew
you.
pew pew pew
Pew pew
pew.
pew. Peace out.